humble. He left out a very important part. We actually work together now, a place that I'm not going to walk out of anytime soon, as a very talented designer helping us with our gaming platform for Miller Lite. So it is a pleasure to get to work with him now at a new agency. I love how we're not talking about agency names. Let's just keep it like that. All agencies will go unnamed. So just a little plug for Night Studio. We're 3/4 of the way through it with me tonight. These are Ben's talk and Clayton's talk are online on YouTube, so check them out. They're nice, short, 20-minute stories about their turning points in the creative fields. Clayton's actually here tonight. Thank you, Clayton. They're very entertaining, so I hope to live up to those. And then next month is Ryan Dugan, who is an amazing artist in Scream. Oh, right there. So let's all come back next month for Ryan. Oh yeah, conversational. It's most of you here know me, so you know that I'm very informal. I hope you like that about me. Tonight will be no different. So while there's a microphone, I probably won't be talking, like using it the whole time. So interrupt me. Feel free to boo, cheer, whatever floats your boat. Okay, so turning points. So when Brad talked to me about turning points, it was kind of like a head scratcher. I'd never actually used that phrase in life, like, oh, I'm approaching a turning point. Or that was just a turning point. So it was great. I was like, yes, I want to do this because I've never sat down to really analyze my personal life, my career, any of that, to like really figure out what were the important moments. And the reason I put up this, do you guys recognize these books? Some of you are too young, which makes me sad, but I'm sure they're available at the library, which, who has a library card? So these books were great, and I was very into them when I was little, and it was all about, like, you can choose this one path, and then you can go back and choose this other one, and some of them had 55 different endings, and some had 8. And I feel like it's, there was a point where I was like, whoa, I can't wait for all these adventures to happen, and then I realized I'm 42. I've taken a real-life choose-your-adventure. And so I kind of am using that as a setup for this because I don't have one turning point. I wish it was that clear for me. It's not. There were a series of them along my life that have sent me in different directions. And fortunately, none of them have ended the way these books used to end, which was usually death or destruction or loss of family or something. So still doing okay. But I do have some time to go, so who knows? We'll start with turning point number 1. So it's a big decision for all of us when we had to make that choice of like, what do I do? What do I go to school for? And I was raised by a father who had very big aspirations for me. So the first one was choosing J school. That was a turning point because my whole life up until the age of 17, I had been groomed to be her. Who recognizes this person? Yes, the oldies over here. My people. Yeah, this is Geraldine Ferraro. She is a great politician. In 1984, she was chosen as the first female vice presidential candidate to this guy Mondale. They had no chance in hell to win this election. Like, it was lost as soon as the nomination happened. But in our house, and this is my brother over here with an amazing mustache. In our house, I was like, she was going to win. Mondale Ferraro was a sure ticket, and this was going to happen. And my dad kept saying, this is going to be you. You're going to do this one day, but you're going to be president. And I was like, all right, first female president. No big deal. And I guess I still have a chance at it. Unfortunately. But really, I don't, because I didn't do all the work that this amazing woman did. Like, her whole life was dedicated to politics. She was a lawyer, a judge, lieutenant governor, I think. She was, like, an amazing person. And my dad wanted me to be her, and I wanted to be her. So that's Murphy Brown. I promise to get up to modern days soon. So the other 95% of the crowd understands what I'm talking about. Murphy Brown was a stupid show, but I thought it was great. It was like a sitcom, but sort of a drama. And Murphy was the head of this like talk show, nighttime talk show, like a 60 Minutes or like a Nightline. I can't even remember the name of the show, but I was like floored by her. She was running the show. She was glamorous. They had lots of interesting romantic tension between the characters. But most importantly, she talked about a lot of interesting topics on her fake TV show that we watched on TV. But she was addressing a lot of the current topics that were like just being openly gay, women in the workplace, having children and being in the workplace, lots of political stuff. And I thought it was cool. And I was like, I want to be the real life version of that. So at the time, Paula Zahn was really popular. So yeah, I wanted to go to J school, and I wanted to be a journalist, a television journalist. So that's what I did. I went out there. And then I discovered all of these wonderful things my freshman year in college. So these are some of these are still around. Actually, most of them except for George and Ray Gun. But I got really into magazines because where I grew up, it was pretty rural. And back then, magazines weren't just like distributed. They weren't at the grocery stores, really. So I didn't see many of these until I got to college. And the J School library was amazing. So I started seeing all of these things and was like, all right, maybe Murphy Brown isn't it. But J School is definitely the right place for me. So there was not another turning point. Like, I did this. I went through college and, well, sorry. No, there was another turning point number 2. Dropping out of college. After I saw these great magazines, I was like, oh my God, J School was 5 different departments. I don't know how many people went to J School in the house? No, J School grads. Well, a lot of them are nerds and ended up just like working on newspapers and stuff. But I did get a little overwhelmed because I was like, I thought I wanted to do broadcast. Then I wanted to do magazine. But I also like editorial newspaper stuff. So I'm going to just drop out for a while, for a year, and move to Italy. And that was awesome because I moved to this city, which is Rome. It's a great city. And I did have a job. Sorry, I'm a little more responsible. I wish I was just like, fuck it, I'm moving. No setup. But no, I was an au pair because there wasn't a journalism school in Italy. So anyway, I was an au pair for a family that worked at these publications. So that was like I was like, oh, I'm on the right path. Like, these guys are like in the business, so they can tell me some stuff. So the mother worked at L'Espresso, which is an amazing magazine, and the father worked at La Repubblica, which is the New York Times of Italy, of Rome. And they introduced me to some people in advertising. And that's what I do today. In case you didn't know, I am in the advertising field. And we won't even talk about that for another 10 minutes. But yeah, I was like, okay, so maybe I'll go back and I'll do advertising. Because these guys are cool, but I went to Saatchi & Saatchi in Rome, and I was like, oh, this ad agency, way better than the newsrooms. I mean, like the newsrooms, you've seen them in movies, or maybe you've been in them. They're fucking intense. And everybody's like, and crammed up. And like, that's how advertising is now. We're all. But this happened in like 96. So back then the ad agencies were freaking posh. There was so much money. Everybody was chill, especially an Italian agency. They were just like, let's have a cafe. Like, when do you guys work around here? But I was inspired. So I came back, and my next turning point, because I was like, sort of like, okay, the ad industry thing might be it, but I was still pretty obsessed with those magazines that I showed you earlier, and in particular, Wired. Wired had come out a couple years before. It was the hot publication. Came out in 93, I think, so this was 96. And while I was finishing up the Italy gig, I applied for an internship at Wired, and I got it. I don't know how I got it, but I got it. And I was very excited. And it was in San Francisco, and I was going to live with my aunt and uncle. But as you notice here, I lost the internship. And it was nothing I did. It was a corporate thing. Condé Nast bought Wired, and they called me 2 weeks before I was supposed to start. And they were like, we're really sorry. It's really unfortunate, but our internship program was absolved immediately with this purchase. So I was like, okay, all right, what should I just stay in waitress for the summer, or like in Missouri? And my aunt and uncle were like, nope, you're coming out here. We're going to figure it out. So my aunt and uncle lived in the Bay Area, and they said, come on out. We'll sort it out. So I went out. This is Wired magazine during the time. So like I was saying, like, well, this was magazine and newspaper journalism, and advertising was like, this was one person's office back then, 20 years ago. But yeah, I did go in and I met everybody, and I was like, oh, too bad I'm not interning here. Instead, awesome cover from that year, and then 10 years later. But instead of working there, my dear uncle hooked me up with an advertising internship. So like it came back again. So then it's kind of like the turning points are funny, because it's like you could go off and like it could have been disastrous. Like if I would have just stayed in Missouri and waited tables because I lost that internship, and my uncle hadn't said, come out anyway, we'll fix it, I may not be where I am today. So I do consider this an important turning point, that I went out there anyway. I did a really shitty internship. It was terrible, because it was like a favor to my uncle, but it was enough exposure to advertising that I was like, I like this. That's what I'm gonna do. Ended up finishing J school with an advertising focus, and that path was kind of set. Brought me to turning point 4. So now we're fast forwarding a little bit. I'm in Chicago. I'm working in advertising, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. You know, it's good. And I was meeting a lot of creative people like you all, which was very, very inspiring. And with a few of them, we decided to rent an empty storefront with no plans. But rent was cheap, because this is also going back a few years. This was 2002, 2003. So we rented a storefront on Damon Avenue, right at Thomas, right by the Rainbow Club, if any of you are familiar. And that was a big turning point for me for a number of years. What? Yes! And JJ's was over there, right on Haddon. Yeah, it was like a happening little place. But rent, I think, for a storefront on Damon was like, it was $1,100 a month or something. And it had like a basement and a loft area. So we were like, yeah, let's just do it. Why not? We've got 5 people going in on it. We'll sort it out. We'll figure out what the hell to do with it next, you know? But this is what we did with it. And I'm going to play this little video. It shows kind of that transformation. And this is about 5 years of time in one. That I was in cahoots with. And shout out to some of the individuals in the room that were pictured in there numerous times. Did you see yourselves? Yes. My hair changed at least 5 or 6 times. Yeah, and this I think was this was a really good time of my life. It was a lot of fun. It was very creative. These folks, we all worked together at an agency that wasn't fulfilling to us, frankly. We were like doing our job. We were all pretty junior at the time. It was pretty thankless at the time, like lots of, back then it was still like dial-up speeds on the internet. So we were making like posters for, I mean, they were banner ads, but they were the non-moving kind, you know. It was pretty dull. There were some great projects, but in general, things moved slow and we were like anxious to do something. So we all got together, all of us art directors, actually, which is kind of funny, and did this. Opened the space, had it open for almost 6 years, did many, many shows, and it was very helpful for me in my career at the same time because our bosses, so we were like the influencers before there was Instagram, you know? So our bosses were like, oh, these kids are cool. Like, yeah, they're doing shows and stuff. And we had some sponsored shows, like we did a Mountain Dew show, and they were like, oh, yeah. And then for a while there, we were like, let's just start our own agency. We can do this. We're all 27 and have no money and can barely pay the rent on this place, but let's do it. And then, you know, once you start doing that, it was like, some people wanted to and some didn't. So it started to flounder a bit, and it was okay because that was kind of the life cycle of it. And this is just a page showing some of the fun stuff we did. We had live shows. We had a lot of interactive shows, and then the Hipstamatic logo. So this is another old person reference, but does anybody remember Hipstamatic? Yeah, same crew. Okay, I like to tell this story. I'll tell it quick, but Instagram stole Hipstamatic. They stole it, and I still think Hipstamatic should sue the shit out of them. They didn't, yeah, they were young kids too. So they were friends of mine, or one was a friend of mine. Two guys rented. So we were so scrappy at Country Club that we would rent out any little corner we could. So there was a loft space in there. And we were like, we'll rent it to you for $75 a month. Take it or leave it. And they were like, okay, cool. That sounds about right. Yeah, we can afford that. And the creative behind Hipstamatic had tried to freelance in advertising, and I had gotten him a gig, and he came into an agency and was like, lasted a week and looked at me and was like, I don't know how you do this. Like, this is awful. And I was like, okay, so it's not right for you. I like it. So he went up into that loft and like 2 months later came out with this app. And apps were pretty new back then. And we were like, oh, cool, an app. It's like this trendy thing. What does it do? And he was a photographer. And he was like, oh, it just makes, it's digital pictures that make it look like it's from a camera. So they were the lenses and the filters. And it was huge. Like it blew up overnight. And he's like, okay, well, we don't need to rent the space anymore. Nope. We're moving to California. And we just bought a building in the Mission District. And I was like, wait, dude, it's been like 3 months. How did this happen? And I was like, what the fuck were you doing in the loft? What was going on up there? And why didn't you tell me and make me part of it? And he was like, haha. So it was fun. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like this turning point was a really good one to make that like random decision. Like, let's just get that storefront. No plans, but we know we'll make something out of it. So that was a good one. And then this one is very personal. So there's this event that a friend of mine hosts every year that some people who are here today have experienced. It's a big rock, paper, scissors tournament. And I know that sounds stupid and immature, but we're advertising people. So that's what we are. So this was our friend Kent. This was the best picture I could find, it's terrible. And it was just wall to wall. So it was a very popular event. And you would just get up over a stage that was lit by like shop lights, but it was very intense and dramatic and lots of chanting. They used to chant, "She has a kid. She has a kid," for me, because I was the only one of the bunch that had a kid. So that was me. And this is, at this party, there was this guy. So it was a big turning point because it was like that night I met him, and I was single at the time. And I don't know. We just like, for me, it was love at first sight. Took him a little longer. I'm kidding. He just didn't want to tell me for a while. And then obviously starting a family is just like a major turning point, Brittany. So yeah, that like one night, that's more of like, I don't know if it's a turning point. I almost wasn't going to put it in because it's more of like just like a lucky thing that happened. But it was something that happened that caused another like big, change in my life, a positive change. So yeah, so that one's quick and easy. And now we can talk about the advertising stuff because that is what is the bulk of my life and has been. I've been doing this since '99. So it does take up, you raise your eyebrows. Yes, I'm old. I told you how old I was though already. And I still like it. I mean, that's the good part. It's been 20 years. It's changed a lot, the industry, but I still have a big love for it. A lot of my teammates are here tonight, and it's great. Yeah. So the turning point, though, in the advertising career, because it was going along pretty normal. I was like getting promotions and making some decent work. But it didn't really, it was just kind of like moving in like a normal direction until I made these talking chameleons. And Brittany and Lauren helped me make them, so props to you guys for helping me in my career. So these are the talking chameleons. I'm not going to make you watch the commercials because they're not very good. I mean, the writing is somewhat clever, but the clients, of course, were like, talk about our product. They got to be talking about the paint, the colors, the Valspar. Like, so they took a lot. I think this one, yowza, was the most interesting word, right? Everything else was like, look at this paint, honey. Do you like the color or no? But these guys, why they're a turning point for me is because I liked the idea. It was supposed to be a single commercial, just a promotional thing about this love your color guarantee, but the clients and consumers liked it a lot. So it became a thing. And it was a multi-year campaign. If you ever go to Lowe's and you buy paint, they're crawling all over the paint chips, which I kind of like. It's kind of freaky. So I do like that aspect of it. But we couldn't kill the chameleons, which was okay because what it did for me, and this is like a piece of advice for every advertising person in here, is like you have to do a lot of work that you don't love to get the clients to let you do one thing that you do. And I think, for photographers, Clayton, you probably feel this too. It's like you got to kind of make your own happiness within a hell of RTBs and just promotional gobbledygook. If they give you just a little bit, it keeps you happy for a while. And then also helps you quite a bit. So you guys want to watch this video? I know a lot of you have seen it. Okay. This is the one little piece of happiness they gave me after making talking chameleons for 2 years. But you got to do that because then they're like, she's a genius. She gave us these chameleons. What does she want to do? Yes, give her 50 cents to make that thing. But it's fun. It's worth all of
I didn't really know there was such a thing as colorblindness at the time. I think I was 6 or 7. I thought maybe I wasn't intelligent enough to tell because I didn't know, and I didn't tell my parents. So I stopped painting and drawing.
There's some drawings where I wish I could see how my kids put the colors together and what they were visualizing. It's not that I can't name them. There's nothing there. That's gray, and that's gray, and that's gray.
I had moments where girls would make fun of me for not knowing girly shades, and I felt self-conscious about it.
Sometimes I feel like there is a world of color that I'm just sort of missing out on.
Color blindness is a situation where, because your eyes are different than someone else's eyes, you don't see the world the same way. Commonly, red and green don't look different, but look the same. So if there's a kind of a color filter, kind of glasses that would separate colors, they suddenly can see red and green.
There's nothing wrong with the wiring. The problem exists in the eye with the photopigments. So Valspar is working with us at Enchroma to bring color to everyone. We developed these glasses to enable colorblind people to see color for the first time in their lives.
There's like this whole end of the spectrum that I just was completely not aware of. I'm like getting misty. This is amazing.
I've never been able to see this one. And I just want to cry a little bit. I never realized like how much I was affected by the fact that I can't see the world like the way that other people see the world.
When he's drawing, I see him going in and out of his crayon box like 150 times sometimes. Oh wow, that's cool. And now I kind of know why. There's a lot more colors here. All these things that are intentional in life, I never caught on to it.
In the end, the experience of color is so private that you don't really know how to explain that.
So is that what you guys see every day? Yeah? Yeah, just everything's flatter. Everything's, yeah, kind of, yeah. I don't want to take them off.
It's just dull. It's a little dull, to be honest. I never really thought about my colorblindness that much. It was just something that I had that I dealt with, and that wasn't really a big deal to me. But color is an amazing experience that I think people probably take for granted.
Luck. No, it was that good. It was almost like the world was like, okay, Myra really needs this to go well. Let's give this one to her. Because yeah, it's just really hard to sell good work like that through to clients. But the crazy thing is it's crazy that it's that hard. I mean, not everything can be like that because then it wouldn't be special anymore. And you need your talking chameleons and the other ads. I guess you need them. So data says. But it ended up doing so many good things. It sold paint. Wonderful. It made the CEO of Valspar look good at his like fancy parties. Those are like the business things, I guess. But then the social things were that like this glassware company, Enchroma, they were about to lose their 4th round of VC funding because they couldn't get attention, and that guy with the white hair he's just very socially awkward and like was having a hard time raising money and didn't have any good video pieces to help him sell that. So when we approached him, we were like, hey, Doug, would you be interested in making a piece of content to show how the glasses work? He was like, yes, I need this. So when the piece was done, he was able to sell some glasses because there was a link when we published the video to get the glasses. So it ended up getting him his 4th round of funding and becoming a viable company through that. And then there was just all the excited colorblind people that had no idea that these glasses were available that now knew and were like having these life-changing experiences. So when clients are like, we want this to have UGC, like that wasn't part of this or ever meant to be. That's not why we did it. But people started making their own videos and uploading them, and people were like, news stations were showing them. So it had like just so many good effects for people, but also for me. So this page is kind of like to show that, it helps, like having a piece like that. So you start getting invited to talk with Google at South by Southwest, and you get ranked things, and you're judging shows. So ridiculous. This is AdStars. They invited me over to judge. They were the first show to invite me to judge because in Asia, especially Korea, they're really into advertising doing good in the world and content, like marketers helping, like using their powers for good. And yeah, it was stupid, this wall. I was like, ridiculous. So I just threw that in there. But what also came out of it was then that press kind of led to the owner of Radio Flyer, who's the founder's grandson, reaching out to me for a special project, like the colorblind thing. I mean, he actually just was like, hey, let's meet. I like to know creative people in Chicago. And of course, I was like, all right, do you have an agency? And he was like, no, but we're looking for one. So we ended up partnering with him. And because of the colorblind work, he was like, yeah, I'd like a content piece like that, or like a video, not emotional like that. This one's really fun. And I'll play it. It's just it's Radio Flyer, and it was for their 100th anniversary. And it was all around the insight that, well, the original insight was that prisoners get more fresh air time than children today because they have more time in their yard, the exercise yard or whatever, than kids are going outside because a lot of recesses have been taken away. So we're all about Radio Flyers, like, and playing outside is all about imagination. And this is like the original vehicle of imagination. So we created a travel agency for kids.
I've been in the adventure travel business for a while now. This is not your normal travel agency. This is basically a travel agency for the imagination.
I always bring my imagination with me.
Where is it?
In my head.
We send kids to some unbelievable destinations that are only reachable by Radio Flyer.
This is my spaceship.
Most of our clientele is 10 years and under. A lot of them are just out of diapers. They want to travel now. They want to see things. We handle all the paperwork, passports, documentation, transportation, accommodations, any discounts for any travel companions, usually a stuffed animal or an imaginary friend.
I have a doggy.
Oh, you have a doggy?
It's over here.
Oh, is this your doggy right here?
It's Rainbow.
Hi, Rainbow. Hi, how are you?
We've sent them to some crazy places. They travel by dragon, by flying submarine. One of them went by a super large snail. It took them a while to get there, but it's our job to make any adventure as thrilling and memorable as possible.
Push this, it might inflate up.
It just did. Did you see that? Oh, wait.
The cape makes me go up, my wing pushes me to the side.
We're not closed off to adults coming in here. Mostly if they come in, we just send them to Tampa.
Is there any dragon fireproof suits?
There's dragon fireproof suits. Those are included in your package.
I definitely need one of those. I'm not really gonna go there.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna go there. Yeah.
Kind of an abrupt end. No new turning points right now. And if you guys want to talk about this, we can. And I don't want to force questions. So if there are no questions, we can just drink more. It's up to you guys. No? No. He's the icebreaker. You're right. All right, Craig. I'll come back. Oh, man. It's tough. I mean, it's like Nike, Apple, but they're so established that it's like, what would I do? I'd fuck it up probably. I would say right now VW. would be amazing to work on because they've kind of lost their way a little bit, and I'd love to help bring them back. But yeah, VW would be my, if I had to choose one. Oh yeah.
Sources of inspiration at any turning point, do you have any that
I know. It used to be much bigger. Like I hunted for it more, and I think it was just a product of the times. So when I showed you the magazines, like I was a magaphile. Like I needed to see the latest one. I would go. There were a lot of great bookstores back then too that you could just go, and Quimby's is still a great place to go. So I still love magazines and find them very inspiring. Museums and galleries are very still like so moving to me and like thought provoking. So I really think like I used to go to gallery nights every first Friday, and I would see all the big shows. The family's like right now taking up that time, but I do think if you guys aren't going to galleries and museums on the regular, you're missing out because it feels good, you know, when you like go to like it could be Vertical Gallery on Western, like a small one, or the MCA, but you just feel, I've never walked out of an art show feeling bad or uninspired. Like I may not have liked the work, but it's like, oh, it was cool to see that person's perspective. I try to like the internet, I was going there a lot for a while, and I've almost like completely stopped doing that. And I think we should all kind of stop doing that. Unless it's like work a little bit, you know, it's just such a lazy way to do it. Like go to, concerts. Sorry. That was probably my biggest one for a long time. And at Shuba's was like my second home next door for many years. But live shows are another thing. Like I would just be watching, because I'm on the art side. If you hadn't guessed that, I mentioned it numerous times. I would sit and watch shows, and then like just images kind of come in your head, or like you make up like the visuals for the sound you're hearing, and it's totally cool in a dark show to close your eyes and just be like, yeah. It's just like, I have also done some drugs in my past that may have fueled that. So drugs are, points of inspiration too. But yeah, like music, galleries, and magazines. Yeah, and art books. Yeah.
So when did you know it was
The turning points? That's a good question, because it never really, like the country club one, the art gallery one, I probably should have done 6 to 9 months before I did. But it's okay. It got a little messy in the end because what I was talking about, the tension between people wanting to do that full time and then the other half of us wanting to keep it a hobby and keep it light and fun. So that one was like one that I could have controlled a little more. The other ones were like, a lot of times, like early in my life, stuff would just happen and it would be a turning point out of my control. So you don't really control it. But yeah, if you start a big project, like even Night Studio, like you might have to at a point in time say like, this isn't fulfilling me anymore, or it's just time to move on. Like it is important to think about that and maybe be more introspective than I ever was. Like I really go with the flow with a lot of things, but I think that's part of my success too, is just like following your gut and just going with it and not worrying about it too much. Like renting a storefront, like we signed a year lease. It wasn't a month-to-month thing. I mean, if I had thought about that, there's no way I would have done it. No way. No, that was crazy. But yeah. It is. So it is. What, for me, because I am a bit of a curator, I think, at heart, and the gallery really taught me that I like to kind of control a theme or like have the ability to like orchestrate an idea a little more. I'm not a control freak. I don't think that I'm like a micromanager. I just really like to have vision. So when you're working as an art director with a creative director, it's their vision, you know, ultimately, unless they're amazing and they let you do whatever you want. And that happens. Like, I like to give my teams some reign, but I didn't really have that. I gotta say, I worked for a creative director for almost 7 years. That was awesome, but he controlled it a lot. And then when I kind of stepped away from him and got promoted to run the Valspar account, I was like, oh, this is nice. Like, I get to make talking chameleons, you know? I don't think like that would have happened necessarily unless I was able to make decisions. But it sucks so hard. Like, I miss the art part a lot because just at the end of the day, when you become a CD, there's like a momentum that starts that then is hard to stop because they're like, all right, you have to be a really good CD. Oh, now we're going to make you a GCD. Now you're going to be leading pitches, and it just, then the art just starts getting farther away. But you just have to make time for it. So I miss the art part, but I like the decision-making part. And yeah, so it's like double-edged sword. There's no sword with no edge, you know? It wouldn't be a sword. It'd be a spatula. I don't know. Yeah. Thanks, Brittany. See, nothing's changed. You haven't heard me do this in a while. Brittany and I worked together at an agency, and she had to endure me talking about the chameleons and Pinterest analyzer tools and all sorts of stuff. But yeah. And also, sorry, the jump from when you're an art director, you're kind of with the team, and you don't get to select the players on the team. You're just on the team. But when you're the creative director, you get to make the team and choose the right players. And that's really fun, too. Like, getting the right crew together. So it's worth it. It's worth the stress. Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much.